Bryan, let's talk some keys revisited for the defensive side of the football. Defense does it again. They are, if anything, they're consistent with the way that they've been playing. First drive or two, it's like
Give
and then
ground.
yeah, and then after that, it's like
Give
sorry,
up a
folks.
score.
It's like you
Yeah.
had your chance, you had your opportunity, and you're not going to get another one. Is what it feels like with defense. But let's jump into these keys revisited. First key, have a better plan for movement. And that was an issue coming into this game. You and I had talked about it on numerous occasions where it was almost odd with how unprepared they were for movement and how out leveraged they would get just based on some very simple movement that the offense would do. And that's all on film. And so you knew that Georgia Tech was going to give that a shot. And guess what? They did.
Yeah.
And they were out leveraged early in this game. And
not as much.
Not as much.
In my opinion, Vince. I actually gave this a check because there was a couple plays where they got out leveraged and some things like that. Like they ran a play on the second drive, the touchdown drive, where they did I think it was a receiver went lined up in the backfield, motioned out, and he caught a now screen, and he made a guy miss and got 10 plays because they were a little late reacting to it. There's a couple plays like that. I thought for the most part, however, Notre Dame did a better job of this because what Notre Dame had done in the past is they would run with motion a lot.
They didn't do that.
They didn't do that as much in this game. They did a lot of – now, that also is why Georgia Tech even moved the ball in the first drive. So they actually shut Georgia Tech down in the first drive outside of a blown coverage. So on 3rd and 7, they went motion across, and Notre Dame, somebody, I don't know if it was the safety, I don't know if it's Learn More, I don't know who it was, somebody overreacted, and nobody was covering the tight end. Like they didn't account for him. So I don't know whose mistake that was, but it was clearly a blown coverage. My thought would be it's probably Leonard Moore. Based on the corner usually is going to come up. He still has to kind of key the tight end, but they blew a coverage. That was 3rd and 7.
Yep.
I mean, first play of the game, Georgia Tech only gets a yard. They try to they went unbalanced on the first play and ran a tunnel screen that Josh Burnham blew up. Just read it perfectly and just, they blew it up for a 1-yard gain. Next play, they run a stretch play. RJ Open does a great job of setting the edge. Notre Dame pursues the ball, and boom, they get it, right? Yep. So you see an unbalance, you see their stretch, so you get 3rd and 7, and you just get a little tight end out. They just ran a motion across, and Notre Dame had a plan for it, but there was somebody blew what they were supposed to do, and they turned the tight end loose. And then after that, 4-yard gain, inside zone for 4-yard gain. They ran an outside zone that Josh Burnham and Jack Kaiser blew up. And then on 3rd and 4, great pressure. Drake Bowen and Jack Kaiser close on the quarterback, stop him short of the sticks because of a pressure from Riley Mills. They stepped up and made plays. The second drive was really the only, in my opinion, like really bad drive of the game. And you had that second down now screen that went for 10 yards. The next play, I thought Xavier Watts just took a bad angle on the over route, let it get over his head for a 16-yard gain. You get a quarterback running. You get the running back in space against Jeremiah Love or against Jaden Alsbury for an 8-yard gain. Get to a 3rd and 1 and then a 4th and 1. They scramble for 3-yard gain, hit a slant route on an RPO for 13 yards where you didn't play it correct. I mean, your slide route goes for, they just kind of nickel and dimed them, and diamond. But I got on here, Vince, 3 different times. I get MT written down, MT, missed tackle. And you had on the 4th and 1, Christian Gray and Jaden Alsbury both had a shot on the running back short of the sticks, and they just missed the tackle. And Christian Gray had the first missed tackle. On the 3rd and 4 swing that they got for 6 yards, I thought RJ Open and Xavier Watts both missed that tackle. Then you get your 1st and goal at the 3, you get a delay. You get the delay on the offense, the illegal whatever signal they had thing.
Yeah, that was weird.
And then they ran once, you stuffed them. They ran it again, you force a fumble, and then the kid recovers his own fumble in the end zone. That was the one bad drive.
Right.
And I don't know that a lot of that was because of – it was a couple of times where I thought the motion, they did a nice job. But Notre Dame, I thought, reacted a lot quicker to that stuff in this game. And honestly, I think some of the success they did have because, their next drive, they went 3 and out. And then they had the long drive at the end of the first half. But again, Vince, a lot of that was due to Notre Dame was in their 2-minute defense, right? But you had a blown coverage that gave them a 25-yard gain. At that, they weren't really they were just kind of nickel and dime, and the clock was going to run out. And then you had another blown coverage on a seam route to the tight end that nobody covers the tight end, and he goes for 25 yards. So I actually felt overall they did and then the second half, Vince, they completely shut Georgia Tech down with their first team defense until, they put the backups in. So I actually give them a check on this. They weren't great at it, but this is probably the best they've been against a team that's really good at this stuff. Georgia Tech did a lot of the stuff they always do, and I thought Notre Dame had a pretty good plan for it in this game.
Yeah, no, completely agree. They absolutely, after that one drive, Georgia Tech didn't sniff the end zone again until they had a bunch of numbers in there that hadn't played. Yeah. So I absolutely agree. We talked about earlier about how, the situation was never in doubt, for lack of a better term. Like, I never felt like Notre Dame was going to lose this game or they didn't have control of this game. A lot of that has to do with the defense. And once the defense settles in, nobody's scoring on them. Like, nobody is threatening this defense from a scoring standpoint.
If you don't have a lead, or at least within one score of Notre Dame by the time the Notre Dame defense figures you out,
you're done.
You're not going to win.
I'm sorry. That's exactly right. And so then that should be the narrative from here on out in the regular season. So
you better get on them early.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the defensive mantra. It's like, okay, we'll give you this. But
and a lot of it has to do, Vince, with in a lot of these games that they've had these issues. You've got somebody new stepping in a starting line, like Louisville. Okay, You're missing Christian Gray. You've got Jack Kaiser got banged up super early in that game.
Yeah, first half.
Boubacar got knocked. I mean, it was your first game. It was only your second game. It was your first real tough opponent since you lost Jordan Botelho. Boubacar goes down in the second quarter
after having a great start to that game. Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of that stuff you look at, you're going to start slow when you're putting in a bunch of new guys into your lineup, especially when those new guys are all young. And then Josh Burnham's playing a new position. There's a couple times that he had blown. Like, you could tell one time they had a nice little run outside. Riley Mills looks at Josh Burnham, and he's like, you can see him like this because you could tell what Riley was doing. Riley was slanting across, and he was expecting Burnham to loop right inside, and he didn't. And so that opened up the lane, and you could see Riley getting on Josh about that, which is what a captain should do and a leader should do. But again, this is Josh's second game playing Viper of this season. So you're going to have some of that stuff. And I thought they did a pretty good job of containing it, and I thought the plan was pretty good. And this was one of their more basic game plans, I felt, from Al Golden. And a lot of that had to do with some of the roles. And like I said, but a couple of times they were able to get them out of position, and that resulted in blown coverages. I mean, because that was one of the minuses of this game is you had 3 big plays that came from blown coverages. You eliminate those blown coverages, Georgia Tech never sniffs. They never sniffed the end zone, in my opinion.
Right. We'll get to big plays in a little bit, but the second victory or key to victory that we need to look at is the interior must dominate. And Bryan, I think we finally found our first plus of the night.
Yes,
because this has been now they're starting to stack games as far as the interior of this defensive line. Right, they're stacking. This is game 3, game 2 for sure, but game 3 where this interior is playing like we thought that they should be playing the entire season. I mean, is that fair? I mean, that's where we're at. These guys are dominant right now. They're dominant right now. And if they keep stacking these games and they keep getting better and they keep doing what they're doing, this is going to be a very, very hard defense to play against.
And I thought Riley Mills was phenomenal. And this is the 3rd game in a row Riley Mills has been phenomenal.
Right.
I mean, he's their best defensive tackle. And I know we were hard on him early, and we were hard on Howard Cross early because they deserved it. The expectations were higher. They should have played better.
Yeah.
But I kept telling people, like, dude, just relax. He'll figure it out. And good Lord, Vince, he's been dominant the last 3 games.
Dominant.
And he's playing with fire, right? Because this is what we challenge. This was the frustration. Where's your guys' pride? You're a 5th-year senior captain. You're a 6th-year senior preseason All-American. Where's your pride of performance? And the last 3 games, dude, they have really come out to play.
Yeah.
really come out to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
And man, I just, Cross was, and I thought Mills was the only one that was individually, wow, holy moly. Cross was good. Heinisch was good. Rubio was good. They weren't dominant as a group. They were dominant. They did their assignments. They did it well. And then Riley played like a man possessed. You know what I mean? I mean, he was so good in this game, Vince.
Yeah.
Another he had 1.5 sacks in the game. Pro Football Focus had him down for 7 pressures. It just was like,
isn't that what Georgia Tech was averaging?
3, yes,
for a whole defense. And they needed it by himself.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, Vince, it was like they had only given up 1 sack all year. Like, guys, they weren't. You're talking about all the they were injured. They were missing 0 offensive linemen. 0 offensive linemen. Coming into the season, Vince, their offense had only given up 1 sack for -1 yard. That's it. And against Notre Dame, Riley Mills had 1.5 by himself. You know what I mean? And he had a couple others that were close, where he's forcing the quarterback to throw off his back foot and get the ball out, and just like, he was really good in this game, like really good in this game.
And they had 2 sacks for -14 yards. In one game. So there you go.
Yep. I mean, he was, and again, as a unit, they played phenomenal. Riley individually was phenomenal, but like Howard Cross had a couple really good stuffs where like he did his job. He didn't make the play on the ball, but he was there to kind of eat up space. And somebody, look, guys, it's not a coincidence that during this 3-game stretch where the D tackles are playing great, it's, wow, these linebackers look phenomenal, right? I mean,
and I texted you that as I was watching film. It's like, look, we know how talented the linebackers are and how fast and athletic, and they're playing free. Well, how do you play free as a linebacker? Well, it's a lot easier to play free as a linebacker when the offensive line isn't getting to the second level, and they weren't getting to the second level because of the crap they had to deal with Notre Dame's front. And it just, again, not only were those guys making plays, because they were, and Riley Mills specifically, absolutely making plays on the football, but they were occupying that entire offensive line, the vast majority of the game, and it allowed those linebackers to just scrape and fly to the football. Just fly to the football.
Yep.
So
And Riley Mills last year was a good football player last year. He had 2.5 sacks all last year, and he had I think 5.5 tackles for loss. I thought he was a good football player. Just needed to finish a little bit better. In the last 3 games, Vince, he's had 3 sacks. In the last 3 games alone. He had 1.5 Saturday. He had half of one against Louisville. I still think he should have more than that. I thought and he had a sack against Stanford. But he's just been playing really, really good football.
Yeah.
I mean, really good football.
Absolutely.
And he's playing like an All-American, and Howard Cross is starting to come along. He was better against Stanford than he was against Georgia Tech, but he's still good. This was not a great matchup for Howard Cross because they're kind of a thick, stout, wide interior. And this is more of a game for a power guy, which is why Riley played well.
Yeah.
And Donovan and Howard, it was not a game where they're necessarily going to be getting around those guys a whole lot, but they did a really nice job of staying at the point of attack, not getting pushed off the ball, eating up blockers, and letting the linebackers
just stagnating. Exactly.
They did their job.
Yeah, exactly.
This was not going to be a Howard Cross game. Just the way that they play, the way that Georgia Tech plays, they're going to run away from him a lot with their stretch stuff. So he's going to be backside pursuit. This wasn't a Howard Cross going to put up monster numbers type of game. This was a Howard's got to do his job and do it hard, and I thought he did that. And I thought Donovan did that. I thought Rubio was solid in the game. As a unit, they played really well, and then they were bolstered by the fact that Riley Mills played like an absolute stud on Saturday. I mean, he was really good.
Yeah.
Really good. And by the way, Pro Football Focus also has him down for 13 pressures in the last 3 games and 8 run stops in the last 3 games. So, yeah, he's playing at a very high level right now.
Key to victory number 3, early down success. And I feel like they did do this, but then they also didn't do this. So it's like, I think they're in the check category as opposed to maybe a plus category for this one. Brian, what say you?
me pull up my numbers there, Home Slice.
Oh yeah, no,
So,
absolutely.
Overall, Vince, I give him a check, but it was a borderline check, and it was a check because of how well they finished. So if you look at the overall numbers, Vince, on first down, Notre Dame did a pretty good job for the most part of it, but they gave up 42 yards on eight first downs in the first quarter, which is numbers wise, it's not a great number. They gave up 5.3 yards per play, but they had two bad plays. They gave up a 16-yard pass and a 16-yard gain and a 13-yard gain in the first quarter on first down. And then they had a 10-yard gain that they gave up on second down. So they had 27 yards on 6 plays on third down or second down. So they gave up 69 yards on 14 plays in the first quarter. And then let's see here. They gave up on first or second down in the first quarter. Second quarter, they gave up 65 yards on 10 plays on first or second down. It was 5 for 34 on first, 5 for 31 on second. But 25 of that came on one blown coverage.
Yeah.
They were a little bit better on first down. They had a 4-yard gain, a 5-yard gain, which aren't great, and then 2 zeros. So it was. I mean, first half is a minus in my opinion, Vince. You had too many mistakes on first and second down in the first 2 quarters. In the second 2 quarters, they had a 60-yard gain on a blown coverage. We'll talk about that in the next section. But here's their gains on first or second down the entire second half against the first team defense. 0. This is in order of first downs and seconds. Third quarter, 0, 2, 0, 60, 3, 6, 2, 0, -1. Fourth quarter, 0, pick, 0, 0, pick, 0, 0. Started wrong, didn't start off well, finished phenomenally and put the game away. Overall, that's a check, right? Because it's looking at it from a whole game standpoint. Not great early. We talked about it. First couple drives, you left, but boy, they buckled down at halftime. Vince made some adjustments, and if not for a blown coverage on that 60-yard gain, Georgia Tech they might not have crossed midfield until they took out the first team defense in the second half. I mean, the adjustments were impressive outside of that one. I mean, again, Vince, they did not have a single positive gain against the first team defense. Not a single positive gain. Not 1 yard on first or second down on 7 plays in the fourth quarter.
Wow.
Not one.
Better get to this defense early.
And their last 3 plays on first, I mean, like 3 yards, 2 yards, 0 yards, -1 yards. I mean, they buckled down and they dominated outside of that one play in the second half. So overall, I give them a check.
Wow. Agreed. I think that's fair because they didn't excel at it early, but then they excelled at it late. So I think a check is absolutely warranted in this regard. So key to victory number 3 that we need to revisit. I'm sorry, key to victory number 4 that we need to revisit. And we kind of touched on this when we were talking earlier about the keys to victory, but it's limit the big plays. And there were 3, if I remember correctly, 3 pretty good sized plays in the pass game.
20, 25, and 60.
Yeah, those blown
coverages.
All of them. Every one of them.
Every one.
Yeah.
First 2 were on tight ends. And again, I don't know who blew the coverage on the first 2. And actually, I don't know who blew the coverage on any of them specifically. I just know that they were blown coverages. The third one, actually, I do know. First 2 to the tight end is what I meant. I don't know who the specific blown coverage was. I don't know if it was a linebacker or was it a safety. The third one was easy. And that was the 60-yard post route where the guy beat Leonard Moore inside, and it looks like, oh, man, Leonard Moore got beat. No, they were playing quarters coverage. And what happened was Rod Hurd was the field safety. You had Jaden Alsbury at linebacker. They ran a post-snap switch, and they ran a wheel, and Rod Hurd bit on the wheel. That's Jaden Alsbury's guy. You're in quarters. You don't bite on a wheel route like that in quarters. You pass that off. You take the post, and then Leonard Moore's got to flip to help Jaden Alsbury on the wheel, right? Like that's to me, that's how quarters should be played. But he bit on that route, and I mean, number 2 goes quick. You're the quarter safety. You're not driving down on that. I think that was Rod Hurd in his old nickel days. I mean, that's just gonna, you know what I mean? It's like when he sees a wheel as a nickel, he's thinking boom downhill. Yeah. He just bit on it. and they threw it behind him. And you could tell Leonard Moore, the way Leonard Moore played that play, he was expecting inside help. And if Rod Hurd steps inside of that post like it's supposed to, I mean, against quarters, that ball should never, ever get caught, ever. I mean, that's part of the reason you play quarters is just a backside single high post is not going to beat you. You know what I mean? And so it's just a blown coverage. That's it. And then they buckled down and held him to a field goal attempt and then blocked the field goal.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So
right.
Overall, plus.
Okay.
I mean, excuse me, check.
I was going to say, I was going to push back on you. Okay.
Yeah, check. Excuse me, check.
Yeah,
because the last one was, there's none of them. They're all mistakes. But this is a team, Vince, that coming into this game was one of the best big play offenses in college football. I mean, you look at their offense, they had 19 plays of 30 yards or more coming into the game, which ranked them 12th in college football. That was an average of almost like about 3 a game. They had 1 against Notre Dame of 30 yards or more. Like we're kind of flipping out about they were poorly timed.
Yeah.
That's where that's not a plus. But like if 2 of those would have come in garbage time, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, all good.
Yeah.
But like against the first team defense, you had the 20, a 25, a 20, and then a 20, a 25, and a 60. That's too much, right? Because they were mistakes. They weren't guys like Louisville. The big plays were like, dude, that was a great ball, a great catch. Nothing you can do about that. They gave them cheap yards, and you can't do that. That's why it's not a plus. But you still held a team that was 12th in all of college football in total plays of 30 yards or more to 1 play of 30 yards or more without your All-American cornerback in the game. That's a pretty good day's work, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not great. You got to clean up those mistakes, but outside of those clean mistakes, they really made Georgia Tech inefficient outside of those plays.
Yeah.
It really was. Now, so, yeah, I give them a check on that, Vince.
I think that's fair. That is actually going to do it for our defensive keys revisited. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends. And of course, jump on the boards.irishbreakdown.com. I believe there's going to be some video breakdowns. You'd already talked about a couple that you wanted to do. So
I'll have them out tomorrow and Wednesday.
Yep, and that's what I figured. Yep. So make sure you
travel
check it
makes
out.
me kind of a day behind of breaking all that down and all that stuff. Yeah.
We're going to give you a pass.
I'm actually going to do a couple defensive ones this week as well. So
nice.
Yeah.
Perfect. So you're not going to get any of that unless you're a premium member of the boards.irishbreakdown.com for all your breaking news and breakdowns because it's in the name. That's what we do. So make sure you get on the boards.irishbreakdown.com.